room back up, and
Please,
let's
please.
finally talk about our actual subject for this episode, which is King Kong versus Godzilla, the original, the 1962 classic. I mean, basically, what I thought we could do is here, just in the normal kind of roundabout, go around the room. I thought we could talk about three things. We could each go through and say like how we feel about this film, this original film. The second thing we'll talk about is an interesting factoid that we want to share, and the third thing, and we'll do like one round would be how we feel, second round would be factoid, and third round would be our favorite collectibles from King Kong versus Godzilla. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with you, Leslie.
Oh my god! Why would you start with Leslie?
Because we're talking about the '62 film, right? So I figured if we're talking, this is not about the current rivalry. This is about the old school stuff, man. Like, where does this movie sit in your love for Godzilla movies? Do you watch King Kong versus Godzilla often?
Well, they start with me, Christine, because I'm cool. Period. End of story. Now, let's just say I grew up with this film. I love King Kong vs. Godzilla. It is in my top 10. It is actually number 10 on my favorite of Godzilla films. And it was one of the films that made me become more of a fan because I'm a huge fan of both King Kong and Godzilla. I love them both equally the same. But I do find it that this film, or at least the ending of this film, really gets on the nerves of Godzilla fans. And sometimes I have to admit, I do find pleasure on poking that bear a little bit.
Like to push those buttons.
Because I just find, even now with the current film, there's a lot of fans out there, Godzilla fans out there, that just hate King Kong. They just can't stand this dude. You would think that Kong did something personal to these people. You would think that Kong personally went to their house, kicked down their door, made love to their wife or their husband while eating a ham sandwich right in front of them. You would think King Kong did something personal to these people.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, I am of the opinion, and I do find the film at fault because it don't take a definitive stance on who really won. But the reason why I think Kong won is because, for one, at the time, even though Godzilla was, the new kid on the block, even the film that came out in Japan and was made in Japan, King Kong was still considered more of the draw and more of the star between the two. And that's not a knock against Godzilla because he was just starting out, right? But between the two, Kong was
John. I see you reacting down there.
I know the truth hurts, John, but let me finish. So Kong was considered more of the star, right? And a lot of fans cannot get over the fact that Godzilla seemingly lost to King Kong. Now, had this been Mechagodzilla, had this been Megalon, had this been Biollante, nobody would bat an eye. But nobody seems to want to give.
I would bat an eye if it was Biollante.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to give Kong the credit. Now, I say Kong won because, for one, he was the hero. He was the protagonist. Godzilla was still the villain in this part of the series. He had to have what he had coming to him. And he was the villain in the next film, which is my favorite and David's favorite film, Multiverse of Godzilla, and he lost there too. So Godzilla had to lose. But also, in the grand scheme of things, I don't mind that Kong wins because at the end of the day, this film really kicked off the Showa series. Say what you will about the 54 and the 55 film. I think this film had a lot to do with how we got the awesome Showa, campy Showa films, which led to the Heisei, Millennium, and the current MonsterVerse. So without this film, I think Godzilla would have become a star no matter what. But I think this film had a lot to do with Godzilla becoming the star that he did ended up becoming. So I have no problem with Kong winning, but in the grand scheme of things, Godzilla was the ultimate winner. Because look what we got out of it. Godzilla got like 30-something films, where Kong got like maybe 9 or 10, if that. So that's why I have no problem saying that Kong won this fight. And it's not like, when you see Godzilla fight Mechagodzilla, or Fight Biollante or Fight King Ghidorah, you enjoy those films. But if you're one of those people that look at that and see Godzilla defeat King Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla, you're like, that's great, Godzilla. But in the back of your mind, it's like, but yeah, you still that Kong thing. If that really bothers you, find a new hobby. Just find a new hobby because I wouldn't take it too seriously. But seriously, I love King Kong vs. Godzilla, and I enjoy it. It's part of my childhood, and I'm glad that on this show we're actually covering this film because with the new hype of the film, everybody's talking about the trailers. Everybody's talking about the new hype for the film, but nobody's covering the classic. And quite frankly, we would not have the new film without the old film. So after this episode, go watch King Kong vs. Godzilla with the Japanese version and or the American version, and you will have a good time. So with that being said, I'm gonna kick it over to my best friend David. David, what do you have to say about King Kong vs. Godzilla?
So just like you, Leslie, I grew up with this movie. It was like a special event in my house when it played like in the evenings. I was allowed to stay up to watch it. Okay, you usually on Channel 9. King Kong vs. Godzilla was usually Channel 9, WOR, New York channel. And every Thanksgiving, they would do, on Thanksgiving Day, they do a King Kong marathon. King Kong, Mighty Joe Young, and Son of Kong. And then Friday, the next day, they would do a Godzilla show. And they do one of those was inevitably King Kong versus Godzilla. Now, I don't believe that King Kong won. I believe Godzilla had the upper hand for most of the film. And the last battle, because of the lightning strikes, it ended up being a tie. Okay. So I'm definitely not thinking that Kong won. It's basically East versus West. It was a big deal for fans back in the 60s when this was released to see it in the theaters because King Kong was a huge box office draw, much more than Godzilla was in the United States. But it was definitely, even in Japan, it was the highest grossing Godzilla film to date. And as Leslie said, without King Kong versus Godzilla, Godzilla may not have even gone on to do anything else, to be quite honest with you. It's just a fun film. I equally enjoy the Japanese version as well as the American version. The American version is actually paced better. They cut a lot of things out that aren't really necessary that are present in the Japanese version. I do hate the fact that they, sort of butchered Akira Ifukube's, really incredible score. Aside from really the Faroe Island music, that's all that they left intact. The rest is stock music from Universal horror and sci-fi films. So in that respect, you got to give credit to the Japanese version. But I'm definitely have love for this film. It's in my top 10 too. It's hovering around like 8, 9, or 10. It depends. It's kind of in motion, but it's a great movie. I love Godzilla's design. He much improved from the Godzilla Raids Again, even though it's supposed to be the same creature that emerges from the iceberg. Very reptilian, massive, huge, beautiful dorsal plates, long, sinuous tail. Just great, massive, a villain, as Leslie said. And so you needed Kong to be sort of the hero and sort of the comedy relief because Godzilla was so actually kind of scary in this movie, if you think about it, the things that he does. But love the movie. I love it. It's great. I watch it quite often, and I vacillate between the American version and the Japanese version. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Christine, how about you, my dear? What do you think?
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's definitely I'm more of a '90s Godzilla fan. I like the '90s films because they're more realistic, I think. Well, maybe except for Space Godzilla, but
yeah,
I guess
I was about to go.
that was a little bit goofy. That's a bit out there. Like King Ghidorah too, but honestly, the only time I watch this one because every year I try to watch all the movies in order, so I watch it. And I kind of like suffer through it. But now with the Criterion, I've been able to watch the Japanese version a few times now. And it's still at the bottom of my list. I'm sorry. But I think the reason why I don't like it as much is because the first two movies, Godzilla was more like he was scary. And he was like this evil, spirit. And he was, angry and had a purpose for attacking Tokyo and all that. And this film just kind of totally turned it all around, and it was more comical and this is when they started aiming more towards like the younger generation, they wanted to make it more kid friendly and all that. And I like the scary, mean Godzilla. So I mean, I watched this one a lot growing up. Maybe not a lot, but my favorite was like the sea monster. But I always thought like Kong looked kind of goofy in this movie. Watching it again, I was like, oh my gosh, the suit is so fun. Like the puppet when they used for the close-ups, I was like, oh my gosh, come on, man. It was good for what they were working with, you know, back then. It's just that goofy face, like what? It just like when I compare it to the 50s Kong when they did the stop motion, like
30s.
it looked like 30s. Like the 30s.
Yeah.
Oh
30s,
god. Okay,
33.
whatever. I don't know.
33.
Listen, I'm not all there right now, but
Maybe
like even then, like there was a difference. Like that Kong looked a little bit more, I would say, realistic than the one that we got in the 62 film. And but I mean, it's still a fun movie. There's parts I think that were a little bit long. My boyfriend fell asleep watching this one. So I mean, I can't really say it's not exciting. I mean it's funny. I love Mr. Taco. I mean, I love like the funny things that they throw in there. But for me, it was kind of a total flip from the first two films where they were a more serious tone. And now it's like, whoa, what happened all of a sudden? Now it's like funny and it's going more towards the lighter side.
We get you. I'm not.
Yeah, but I mean, I get.
I feel like you're thinking we're like disapproving of your answer.
Yeah.
Like we're.
Oh
You have
no.
you have every right to not love it. It's like it's.
But it is nostalgic. Like I grew up watching.
It's totally nostalgic.
But I would even say like when there were times when I didn't really care for this film. You know, there were definitely. I'm not jumping ahead of my. I'm just saying like this is not a film for everybody for sure. You know, and if you're,
it's not one for
I
me.
definitely feel
fun.
like it helps to learn a lot of the backstory, but like a lot of the backstory isn't available readily. You know.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It's true that the nostalgia factor is huge for me with this one, and I know for John too. And I didn't talk about the Kong suit. I'll do that really quick. The Kong suit is terrible. It's shoddy. It's definitely not the emphasis. Tsuburaya did not put emphasis on this Kong suit. He put emphasis on the sets, on the Godzilla suit, and on the miniatures, like that, and the landscape. It's I think some of the best.
Like you could tell.
But the Kong suit is shoddy and it's terrible and it doesn't match. The puppet doesn't match, and even there's two like heads on the suit that don't match up, and the arms go from short to long. It's terrible, but something about it, I love it. I give it passes. I don't know why. I love it, and I do disagree with you. Godzilla is not goofy in this one. He's actually, except for when he's with Kong at certain times, he's actually pretty serious.
Yeah, that's
he
true.
destroys that NATO base.
Yeah, that's it. When he's always like,
Yeah, well, all right. Well, you know, he wrecks the Shinkansen train. That's pretty. Big scene.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think.
I guess the rest of the tone of the film.
Ryan Mitchell just said, coming out of that iceberg, it's just incredible.
I do like that scene.
And that's what the continuity from the last film picks up, because it's that Godzilla. It's not the 54 Godzilla, because he's dead. But anyway, sorry, John. What do you think about it? I think I know the answer, but what's your take on it?
I have a range of emotions about this film. Be careful, Leslie. Let me say now, is it true? Now, I did hear that they weren't allowed, obviously, to make Kong look like the American version of Kong. So the suit design, I give them a pass for that. But let me say, this film, like you do, holds a lot of.
But they were allowed to make him look good.
I know.
They could have made him look good.
Sorry.
I have a lot of different feelings about Kong in general. I do love the 33 film, but this film holds a lot of memories. I remember seeing it for the first time on Dr. Shock here in Philadelphia on Channel 17. It was all worked up. I think it was at 8:00 at night.
Yep.
I could still see the commercials.
Me too.
And that was my first view of it. But I really didn't like seeing Godzilla, get abused in any way. And I think that's why I always hold this, kind of feelings about the film. I didn't like anything. Yeah, I didn't like Godzilla Monster versus Godzilla. Just didn't. The only show of kaiju to defeat Godzilla was Mothra. That's according to the book. That's according to the book. I'm just, Kong might have got around and Godzilla got around, but when they called that fight at the end, it was like they both went over the cliff.
Yes, they did.
I thought it was a tie.
Well, the book said it was a tie. That's just a record. Look, I don't write them.
Godzilla's okay, underwater.
But
that book that I wrote said that he won. That's
yes, me too.
Tomo Yuki Tanaka. I've got it. Mothra is the real show a chance. Just for With that said, though, I enjoyed the film and I love the suit, and I wish. And David, you may have said this before. I wish the suit had been in other films.
Yes.
Because it is. I love it. I love the design. It's different. It's unique out of all the suit designs.
It really is.
It's not the film I turn to when I want to watch a 60s show, a Godzilla film, but I appreciate it more and more. In part, sometimes for the other things other than the fight sequences. Mr. Taco, and I really appreciate the 60s era, but maybe for the cinematography as well, and and the color, the technicolor, whatever, and all those other things that make the movie special. And some of the set, I love the set. I love the rocks and the hills and just the rocks, and then the final battle at Atami Castle. Just beautifully done, and overall, it's in my top 10 for sure.
Yep.
Maybe not above the top 5, but it's definitely a good film.
Exactly, me too.
There are some things in there that make me uncomfortable as well, but overall I love the film.
Now, John, before you forgot to say that you're not feeling Arnold Johnson because you hate that scene where he says that Godzilla's brain is about this size. I know.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
That scene, it cuts here. No, sorry.
When you're young, Godzilla is everything, and anything that demeans or takes from his prowess and his. No, I don't have it. I don't mind Mechagodzilla, doing some damage because I know how epic his comeback is going to be. But with Kong, come on, absorbing lightning. Come on. That's Godzilla's thing.
There's a reason behind that. That's
the only way that's the only way he could win is to give him something.
Thank you. And let me just say, in this new film, they're trying to find something to give him some power. Had to make him bigger, and he got this axe thing. Come on, man. Come on.
Does that bother you? Does it really
making that up?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it.
He's still gonna get his butt kicked.
I so love that.
Come on. I love it. But come on.
Yep, I know.
I feel bad for you, John, too. I really do.
Wait, we're gonna be surprised come March 31st. We're gonna have some surprise.
That's what I said earlier. Had this been Mechagodzilla, any other monsters, nobody would bat an eye. Because it's King Kong, just Godzilla fans lose their minds for some reason. It's probably because Kong has an elevated place in American cinema, and everyone leans toward Kong here in a lot of ways. But it's funny. It's like when guys, according to the average Godzilla fan who don't know no better, Kong is just an overgrown giant gorilla. But yet, y'all didn't say nothing when Godzilla fought a giant shrimp, a giant spider, a giant praying mantis.
Because he beat the crap out of those things, dude.
But still, Ebra gave him a good fight, though. You got to admit, right? But still, it's like nobody said nothing about Ebra, nobody said nothing about Kamunga, nobody said about Kamacuras. But as soon as you say King Kong, I'm like, okay.
Right. I'll tell you my reason why I don't like it. I would have hated to have seen Godzilla fight Frankenstein. It's like Godzilla's fighting a human now, and that's the problem. Kong, and that's the problem. I'm like, no, that's the humans are the problem from the beginning. That make a Godzilla. So, I got a problem with Kong and with even if Godzilla fought Frankenstein, from Frankenstein Conquers the World, etc. If that ever, I don't want that. That's not a kaiju. That's just
I get that, but you know what? I think the reason why the film ended the way it did you have to realize Toho had to pay money to use Kong in their film. And say what you will about that, Toho really wanted to make a King Kong film. I mean, King Kong was partial inspiration to the original Godzilla film anyway. You know, Subaraya said that. So they had to pay to use King Kong. So I think the way they did it was to please the people at RKO, because I don't see RKO letting their most famous character to this studio, to this foreign studio, and say, you know what, you can have Kong, but you know he has to win. I think something like that happened. So Toho, I think, was in a position where they were like, okay, how can we make it appear that Kong won, but yet not have our monster look like a punk because of it? And I think that's basically what you got.
That's an interesting
Good
perspective.
point.
That's a really
Yeah.
interesting
Good
perspective.
point.
And it may,
Yeah.
it may indeed be true
Makes
on some
sense.
level. Yep.
The only reason that I think that maybe that I'm not like discounting it, but the only reason that I would even say like maybe not is because I have this feeling that John Beck, the producer that brought Kong to Toho, he had no real connections to like
Nope.
RKO. I mean, obviously licensing had to happen for the movies to happen, but like he took that deal to Toho because Willis O'Brien was trying to get another King Kong movie made. And my slightly informed opinion, but only opinion, is that John Beck was like, yo, Toho, you want to make this movie? Cool. Have at it. See you later. Let me know when it's ready for me to take in the profits.
That's what
You
happened.
know.
That's what happened because I think I think in all intents and purposes, he stole Willis O'Brien's Frankenstein idea. More on that later.
Right.
And took it to Toho, and Toho didn't have any knowledge of that. So trust me, we're not bashing Toho, ladies and gentlemen. They were in the dark about what happened, but that's what Beck basically did. He took the idea from Willis O'Brien, took it to Toho, but it was a happy accident because look what we got out of it.
Yep, it's true. And here's the actual deal. Toho really wanted a vehicle to bring Godzilla back to the screen for their 30th anniversary. And what better way than to have an iconic giant monster from the United States fight their iconic giant monster from Japan, Godzilla. That's the bottom line. And they probably couldn't kill Kong off too if they had the idea that they were going to do another film, because Godzilla versus the Sea Monster was supposed to not be Godzilla, it was supposed to be Kong, and you guys all know that. That's why Godzilla acts very Kong-like in many of the scenes. So who knows? That we ultimately did get King Kong Escapes, but anyway, Kyle, how about you? What do you think about this movie? Let's hear your thoughts.
You know, I do actually, I love this movie for what it is, right? I talked to you guys about this a little bit. I've introduced King Kong versus Godzilla in theaters more than any other film because it is a crowd pleaser. It's the movie that people are like, look, we got access to this. Let's put it up on the big screen. And I always tell people that, you know, I take Godzilla movies very seriously. Godzilla movies is serious business, except for King Kong versus Godzilla because it is actually a comedy. And I think that's what makes this film stand apart. It's a comedy in the fact that it is it's looking at it's taking a satirical look at the modern, at the time, society with capitalism just running rampant through Japan. And I think it's fascinating. It's a fascinating look in the differences between America and Japan. It's a fascinating look at and even in society too, the societies of Japan and America, and like how they took the idea and ran with it, and then how America took that movie and changed it up, just like King of the Monsters. Like there's a lot of stuff about this movie that I love, but at the same time, I didn't really care for it when I first watched it. I think this was probably the first Godzilla movie that made me laugh out loud, and that was when the Kong and the Godzilla puppets fall down Mount Fuji and start sliding down on their butts. I was laughing my ass off at that, man. However, that's, you know, this is the third Godzilla movie ever, you know, and this is the second time it's giant monster fighting giant monsters. So I give this movie a really wide berth. I give it a lot of leeway. And for me, King Kong versus Godzilla might not be in my top 5, but it might be in my top half of kaiju movies. It's super, super fun. And the response, seeing people respond to this movie is fantastic. So
It's funny.
if you haven't had the opportunity, once COVID is all, leveled out and we can go back to movie theaters safely, if you ever get the opportunity to see the original 1962 King Kong versus Godzilla in the theater with other people who want to see it, I highly suggest it.
I'll do it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I'm in.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to share is our favorite factoids or trivia bits about King Kong versus Godzilla. We're just going to kind of, again, go around the room. We'll just blaze through these really fast and get through the next section really fast, and then we'll hit our intermission after that. So, Leslie, what important or interesting, significant factoid did you find out about King Kong versus Godzilla that you wanted to share?
That basically that the original plan for this movie was to have, like I said, King Kong fight a giant version of the Frankenstein monster. I think he was going to be a monster that was going to be sewn together by African parts, something like that.
That's
Prometheus.
Yeah, Prometheus.
That's right.
So I find it very ironic and funny that actually this movie and the next movie, Monster vs. Godzilla, the original plan for that movie was for Godzilla to fight Frankenstein. I'm sorry, John. I really am. So I find it very ironic that we almost didn't get two of the most popular films in the Showa series because originally, respectively, Godzilla and Kong was going to fight a version of Frankenstein in their movies. But I think everything worked out for the better on all fronts here. King Kong vs. Godzilla ended up becoming basically a staple for everybody's childhood. Monster vs. Godzilla, me and David ain't got to tell you about that movie. So I found that tidbit information that the common denominator between the two original plans was Frankenstein. How about you, David?
very interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about how the original 1933 King Kong inspired the Japanese filmmakers to make this movie. It's been noted that Tsuburaya and Honda and Ifukube, as a matter of fact, all three were greatly inspired after they viewed the original King Kong. And I am going to read you guys a quote that I found in August Ragoni's awesome magazine, E.G. Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. So if you please will indulge me for just a second. Now, this is actually a quote directly from E.G. Tsuburaya from the Mainichi News, March 27th, 1962. My movie company came up with a very interesting script that combines King Kong and Godzilla, so I couldn't help working on this production instead of my new fantasy films. The script is very special to me, and it struck a deep emotional chord because it was seeing King Kong back in 1933 that sparked my interest in the world of special visual effects. So Tsuburaya himself was so inspired by the original King Kong that he put much love into making this film. And it's just one of those things where the original just inspired so many filmmakers, including Ray Harryhausen. That's how he got started in the fantasy film business as well. So I'm not going to say anything more, but just a huge inspiration. And 30th anniversary for Toho, a great film, highest grossing Godzilla film to date. Just great. And if you have not picked up this book from August, it's great. Check it out. Christine, how about you?
All right, so actually I wanted to talk a little bit about the very first monster fight that was in Godzilla versus King Kong, and it was actually Kong versus the giant octopus, or Odaku. So the octopus was actually a challenge for the special effects team, and they used 3 different ways of effects for Odaku. So the first was they used 4 different live octopuses for the scenes when it's attacking the village. So they used a live octopus with the actors. They kind of like spliced the actors over. And afterwards, 3 of those octopuses were released back into the wild, but one of them became a very special dinner for Tsuburaya. So he did not win in the end.
Nope.
And then they also used a stop-motion octopus for when he was attacking the villagers and throwing them around, grabbing them and all that. And then the third effect they used which was pretty obvious, was the puppet, the plastic that they wrapped in plastic to make it look all kind of slimy and mucusy, which is what the suit actor in the Kong suit actually fought with, was the giant puppet. And then another tidbit I thought was really cool was the animator or the animation director for Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest actually instructed his team to specifically watch those scenes in King Kong vs. Godzilla with the octopus to use as a reference when they were animating the Kraken's tentacles. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Interesting. And you got to believe that filmmakers who made the Skull Island had definitely found inspiration in the original from that great scene. It's too short, but the great scene where that particular Kong battles that octopus and then ultimately ends up eating him, that had to be inspired by the original.
Absolutely.
Had to be.
That was the first fight in that movie.
It was. And it was done really well too. And just putting it out there, that's a really cool Kong. I like it. It looks sort of like a Toho Kong if it were animated in CGI. I just like that. So anyway, sorry.
What cool factoid do you have for us, John?
I have the obvious ones. The first Godzilla film in color. It was the first, in a Toho scope or Cinescope, and also the first time they built the pool. That big, huge...
The big pool,
yeah, the big pool in the back.
Right.
So all those things that would be important going forward in the show series. So many firsts.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And back to our leader, Carl.
Well, thanks, guys. I do have, there's so many factoids that could be shared about this movie.
Yeah.
One of the only other things I love to do when I'm in front of a theater telling people about these movies is I like to break out the old press kits or the showman's manuals and share some of the craziness inside. Unfortunately, I don't have the actual King Kong vs. Godzilla showman's manual, but in every single one of these, pretty much, there is a set of instructions for theater owners on how to get the best bang for your buck when showing Godzilla versus blah, right? Or King Kong versus Godzilla in this particular instance. And so even though I don't have the actual showman's manual, thankfully, Steve Reifel shared some of this in his book, Japan's Favorite Monstar, the unauthorized biography of the Big G. And, these always are big hits with the crowds when I read them out loud. There was apparently a bilingual press release issued by Toho where both monsters were predicting their own victory. Godzilla said something like, "It's most gratifying for me to have the privilege of seeing you again after breaking through an iceberg in the Arctic Ocean where I was buried. At the thought of my engagement with King Kong from America, I feel my blood boil and my flesh dance."
That's awesome.
It's awesome. But then there's that. Actually, I think that was from Toho, not just like a theater thing. The theaters would also put on these. I mean, hopefully they did. I wasn't around back then, but little they suggest doing parades. Put on a big float, King Kong versus Godzilla float, or put on a fake fight, right? Where you've got a guy. This is the best one, honestly. I'm just going to end with this one. Okay. Actors wearing Godzilla and King Kong costumes were to be sent into the streets. The costumes should be easy to prepare. Use red electric bulbs to simulate atomic fire. For a gag, let King Kong carry a jug of King Kong juice, which he drinks lustily from time to time, getting hilariously drunk as he does in the picture.
That's gold.
There's quotes around those, so I'm guessing those are directly from the Showman's Manual. Those are awesome. I absolutely love that stuff. Actually, if I ever get a hold of the Showman's Manual for King Kong versus Godzilla as a collectible to bring it into our next segment, that it actually comes with a little record, like a little flexi disc record that has like the radio ads for King Kong versus Godzilla. So someday for my collection. I've got like 3 or 4 or 5 press kits as it is right now. I really like those old ephemera from America too.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to our collectibles, our toys, our monsters from this movie. What are your favorite collectibles? And actually, when I'll make your screen bigger here, Leslie, so that you can actually show us the goods up big.
Well, I do have a few collectibles for this movie.
Ooh, but don't knock Monster down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
so
monster.
it's
Get him, get him, get him.
Yeah,
Don't do
My
it.
heart was
I got
fluttering
some-
like Kong's eyes.
I got me some new shelves. Move Kong so you can see the shelves. See, I got some new shelves
nice.
so I can house more crap in there. But yes, I mean, notwithstanding, I got the S Plus Gigantic 62, that fat guy up there. I got me a custom Giant Kong 62, which you'll see after intermission when I'm hugging him. Yes, Team Kong. Talking about yeah. But yes, my top 2 favorite collectibles from this movie is, of course, the S Plus 30 centimeter 1962 Godzilla. In my opinion, the best one the S Plus has ever done. Yes, yes, yes. And of course, you've been seeing him all night because he deserves it because he was the star of the film. The Roto Kaiju 30 centimeter giant model kit built up by the awesome Steve Savagoli and sculpted and made by Beto Matali. The Roto Kaiju Giant Gorilla 1962, also known as King Kong 1962. I'm gonna steal David's word here. The quintessential King Kong figure from this movie. And that's it. That's all I want to say about collectibles. What about you, David?
Kyle, I think you've got a slide or an image of my Kong collectibles that I put up.
Yes, sir.
There. So these are my Kong
Nice.
collectibles.
You get the blue one.
I love them all equally as much.
Nice.
Now, I painted the standard color Roto Kaiju Kong. That's the Kong 2.0. And Steve Serajoli actually painted. That's actually glow in the dark blue paint on the first issue of the Roto Kaiju Giant Gorilla. And there is an Apes Kong, that 62 Kong, and then of course the iconic Bandai Kong as well. And for the Godzilla, I don't have an image for the Godzillas, but I'm going to show you this guy. This is the gold Gig Breed, the very first.
Beautiful.
Just a beautiful figure. It's undeniably incredible. Your eye goes right to it on my shelf. I really like it. And then I'm going to choose 2 more. I'm going to choose the gigantic, the X Plus gigantic 62 Kong, which we were lucky to see in mid-production in Japan when we were there in 2015. And then I'm going to also give a shout out to the favorite sculptor line, X Plus King Kong, which is based on the Atragon GK resin King Kong kit, resin King Kong model kit. So that's what I got. There's so many great things, and it's hard to choose, but those are the ones I chose. Christine, what about you?
Well, I actually do have a 62 Godzilla figure. Only one, I'm sorry. But I couldn't resist.
And he's
when
blue.
I saw this. Yes, and he's blue translucent with this beautiful gold spray. So this is the Gigabrain 62 Godzilla.
Gorgeous
Yeah,
sculpt.
sadly, it's the only 62 that I have because I'm not the biggest fan of the suit. But this figure is gorgeous. I like blue. I like translucent. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it. It's a great sculpt, fun to pose, and I love Gigabrain stuff.
Me too. Good choice.
That's all that I got. What about you, John?
I don't have enough 62 representations, but the ones that I do, I love. And my favorite, and I don't have it, I can't pick them up, is the gigantic, X Plus Gigantic 62. But I actually probably enjoy taking photos of my X Plus 62s more than maybe any of my other Godzilla representations. But I don't take many shots because I would read too many. I mean, people would get tired of it. But I love the favorite sculptors line.
It's amazing.
I think, isn't it? And Dave, I love the shots you've taken. Sometimes I want to come behind you and take them again because you get the angles so beautifully.
Yep.
There's so many great angles to be taken. So this is probably my favorites. But I have to say, I regret not getting that X Plus figure of King Goji where he's kind of walking. And
I have it.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's right behind me.
I regret not getting that. But,
he's
pick and choose. I would love a bust of King Goji too, like a big, gigantic big bust or a head, With that said, they're my favorites. Oh, one last thing, and I won it today on Buyee.
Goodies.
Is a Toho Champion Matsuri King Kong versus Godzilla ticket.
Oh,
nice.
It cost me a little bit more than I wanted to pay, but it was completely worth it.
That's awesome.
I'll have it next week.
That's great. So
Phenomenal, dude.
if I may, before you go, Kyle, I'm going to make it's kind of an addendum to my news segment. There is has been announced Akira Ibaraki new sculpt of the 1962 Godzilla. Now, this is going to be one in his 40-centimeter resin pins and magnet series, and we've only got some teased images of certain parts of the model that are finished. But I actually emailed him, and he said it should be complete by May. So we should be looking for being available to purchase starting in May, and we will definitely keep you guys informed. Those of you who are into models, I know Ryan Mitchell's still in our chat room, and he's a model dude, and it's beautiful. It looks like it's going to be, dare I say, the quintessential 60. I love the way I love Leslie's impression of me, but I've done yes more than enough times, so I guess I deserved it. But yeah, so I'll post some pictures if I haven't already in our Collect All Monsters Facebook group. So stay tuned for that news. So Kyle, let's pass it on to you. What are your collectibles that you dig?
Just out of curiosity, David.
Yes, sir.
I think, is this one of the photos of that Ibaraki kit right here?
That is indeed one of the photos of it. Yeah, I actually have never seen that one. That's one that must have just recently come out. Yeah, and open and closed mouth like he's done with the other ones that he's put out the last couple of months. And huge, massive 40-centimeter model kit. The tail's probably really long. Again, a novice modeler can build this guy because it's built with pins and magnets, and you do not need any glue whatsoever. I'd recommend some parts you might want to glue eventually, but super great. The detail's amazing. Probably not going to be an inexpensive purchase, but sometimes you got to pay for the good stuff, man. And,
well, what of those kits? Because this is now the third one, right? So like these got the 64, which you built, and the 99.
99, and this is the third in this particular series, if I'm not mistaken. Ryan will know if there's another one. I think maybe they did a Heisei. He did a Heisei at some point that was before these were released, but I'm not quite sure on that. But they're great.
But what's the price tag on the previous two? Just to like $400 bucks?
Roughly, they're about $500 before shipping.
Okay.
And the shipping, because they're very heavy, the boxes are super heavy. Will probably be at least another $100 to ship it. But I guess I could be mistaken on that. But
that's still, though, even those prices, even thinking back when I used to bulk at model kit prices. Those are pretty good, especially when you compare them to like the cost of an X Plus Gigantic, right?
That is absolutely true, and it's just shy of the. I mean, 40 centimeters is a big kit, and the quality of these kits. I'm telling you, if you see them in person, they're just astounding, and they're museum quality. I mean, there's certain figures that can be elevated to the status of museum quality. These kits are museum quality, and the great thing about them is if you have to move or something, you can disassemble it just as easily and put it right back in the styrofoam container that it came in, and it's just really, really great. So I just wanted to put that out there. Perfect timing for our 62 Godzilla chat, and more information coming soon. So please stay tuned.
Yes. And actually, I think there's a couple of people who actually asked about that in the chat. So stay tuned to the Facebook group. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, hey, why don't I throw up a banner for the Collect All Monsters Monster Collectors Facebook group? That's why they're there, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right. So let me talk a little bit about my collectibles. I actually don't have that many collectibles from this film. I do have a movie poster, and I have a couple of ephemeral books and so forth that cover this film.
Patch?
I got a patch. That's right. I got a King Kong patch, and I got a Godzilla patch, and all sorts of cool stuff. There might even be some pins on here. I don't even know. But in terms of figures, I also have a Gigabrain. This is a gorgeous little guy.
Wow.
I actually bought from Dan Miller, and this is not
pretty.
The lighting is not doing this guy justice. It's translucent and somewhat neon. I've
never seen that.
Ultraviolet reactive. So if I turn the lights off, he doesn't glow in the dark. But if I take this guy over to my UV light, he glows insanely brightly.
Weird.
It's really cool. And it was one of those like happy accidents. I was just like, what's that guy glowing across my room when I turn the light on? There he is. So
I've never seen that
great
before.
figure.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
it's in fact they made
Wow.
at least 2 or 3 different, because most times when they do these, they'll do a series of them. This was back in the day. They would do a series of them in the same colorway, right? So you get like this neon green in the 62 and also the 64 and also the 65. They don't do that as much these days. They tend to bounce around with those colorways. But yes, I absolutely love that guy. And then the other thing I was going to show you guys is that they should fight. You should let them fight.
Billiken Kong, yes.
So this, I'll start with Kong. This is the Billiken Kong.
All right.
Fantastic.
This is my favorite Kong sculpt. First up, I will absolutely admit that Beto sculpt is phenomenal and really, really suit accurate.
is.
However, the stylism in this, the stylizing that's going on with Kong's design is just superb. I have always loved this kit ever since I saw it. It's got a slightly cartoony vibe to it, just a little bit. But I think that when you're looking at something and comparing it to the actual gross King Kong suit in the 1962 film, stylism can be an improvement.
That's right. Most definitely.
It's true.
Now, this is a 30 centimeter kit. I don't have a ton of 30 centimeter figures, but basically he's sort of an odd man out. And I don't have the X Plus Godzilla in the 25 centimeter scale, but David recognizes this bad boy.
I do.
This is the Bandai Museum kit that actually David did a little touch up on in the eyes and the
I did,
the
and
mouth.
the mouth was hanging too far open, so I closed the mouth slightly and resculpted the jaw so it matched. And he almost looks like the favorite sculptor line Godzilla.
He really is. When
the
you
same
when you showed him from this angle your favorite sculptor line earlier, I was like, wow, that's really similar. This was, like as I said earlier, the Bandai Museum, and I actually bought this from David because I had just sold my own version of this that I had purchased back when it came out, and then I made that decision to get rid of all of my 30 centimeter X Plus figures, and that's what happened what ended up happening with that guy. But this guy's gorgeous in my lineup. He fits really well. He really does look just like an X Plus figure because there's kind of is. I'm sure somebody in the chat will mention that. But those are my collectibles. That's the collectible side of King Kong versus Godzilla. Thank you guys all for hanging out and talking about that stuff with us. Holy moly! It's been an hour and 49. I think it's about time for us to take about a 2-minute intermission.
Okay.
And when we come back, oh no, we can't leave yet. You know why we can't leave yet?
What do we miss?
Because it's time to give something away. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have a live giveaway happening right now here on Collect All Monsters, broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks to all 66 people who are watching this live. You guys are awesome. If you guys are interested, we're going to be giving away this NECA 1962 Godzilla, which really, like, the NECA line really improved over time, and this is one of the better ones, I think. The way you can enter to win this is by keeping your ears open, because David, I think, is about to ask a trivia question, and literally the first person who responds with the correct answer in the chat room, the live chat, it could happen on both Facebook and YouTube. The first person to respond will highlight that correctly, and we'll highlight that, and you will be the winner. We'll contact you afterwards. We'll get your information and send you this beautiful prize.
Gojira.
Yes.
Hi, Gojira.
So
Good luck,
I know
guys.
there's a slight delay, so I'm just making sure. Yes, drum roll, please. Enzyme 2000 says. You guys ready for this? David, if you're ready to answer, I'm ready to watch.
I'm ready.
All
So
right.
it pays to stick around, collect all monsters, and watch us all the way to the end. So just keep that in mind for the future. So the question is, what is the name of Mr. Taco's mascot from Pacific Pharmaceuticals, from the Pacific Pharmaceutical Company? We'll accept two. There's two possible names. That's correct. And there he is. What is the name of that mascot character?
You know, I think it was a long time before I even recognized that this was something in that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to have eagle eyes, and the widescreen version really helps because you can't see it in some of the pan scan shots in the American version. So, Robert's got it.
Robert Dwyer is definitely the guy who got it. Passing Boy, or
Travelman Boy.
Travelman Boy.
So,
Travelman Boy, because that is actually a real mascot in Japan for a real travel medication. Like, yeah.
Oh man!
Congratulations, Robert.
Yeah,
well done, sir.
Leave it to the Kaiju Jeopardy champion from Fest to come up with that answer. Of course, he spelled it wrong, but that's okay.
Oh man, Robert, you are so lucky. I'm not sending that because I know you're a Kong hater. You're lucky that I'm not in that box. Put that out there.
Congratulations, man. Seriously.
Yeah, very good.
Wow, that was awesome. I thought for sure we were going to be sitting there spitballing for the longest time, waiting for somebody to get that answer. But thankfully, Robert Dwyer was watching. All right, so I'd say, before we get going, I want to say thanks again to everybody watching live in the chat. Did Ryan Mitchell
did Ryan get it first?
No, he didn't. Oh, weird. I was watching that. How did that happen?
I was watching it too.
You know what? There we go.
Ooh,
that's
okay.
weird. Well, Robert, I tell you what, Robert will send you a consolation prize anyway, but yes, technically speaking,
Ryan got it first.
This is Robert's, right? And then 1, 2, 3, still right, just seconds before.
Sorry, Ryan.
We
absolutely, both of us were looking at the screen, and it's Robert's seemed to pop up first on our end. So, Gomen nasai. Sorry.
Wait a second. Hang on a second. Was that actually? Did Brian answer? Or did he just write it beforehand? Anyway.
Oh.
Either way, there's a little bit of a Ryan's like, I'll give it to Robert. So. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure
it out. We'll reach out to you. No, actually, you know what that probably means? It's deathmatch time.
Do we have a backup question?
Over the next 2 minutes, when we're off screen, Ryan and Robert will battle to the death. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to go into our extended Show Yourselves segment.